Alright folks, the new Weebill S Firmware 1.97 is out, and the big question is always, should you upgrade or should you not? So let's take a look at the new Zhiyun Firmware update and see what is the difference between the 1.96 and 1.97 version. Alright, so we got new firmware for the Zhiyun Weebill S. That is always exciting. What have they done with it? And today we're gonna go over the 3 points that they have updated in this firmware. But there's especially one of the points that is very important, and that is the motor strength of the gimbal. Alright, the first point is pretty easy. If you got a Sigma FP camera, you now got camera control from the gimbal, so that is pretty great. The next thing is they have improved the algorithm of the gimbal. And so what is the algorithm of the gimbal? Yes, that is how the gimbal reacts when you are controlling the gimbals. So the last point of this firmware update is where it's getting really interesting, because they have improved details and better performance. And what do they mean with that? Yes, the better performance is, what I can see is that they have strengthened the motors. And if you have an older Weebill S, as this one is one of the first ones that came to the country, compared to this one, which is brand new, you might get an issue when updating your gimbal. Because when I updated this one to the 1.97 firmware edition and auto-tuned it, the motors were vibrating. And I have to turn them all the way down to around 30, the motors on the tilt and the roll, about 30 and 40 to get it to work properly. And when I auto-tune it, it just vibrates when I'm going to shoot with it. It doesn't really work. I can also feel it if I feel like the lens here on the camera, I can feel that it's vibrating a bit. On the newer one, I really didn't have that issue. I've tried to upgrade and downgrade it a couple of times on this one as well, and it kind of works, but there's still a little bit of vibration. If I turn the motors up to my normal custom settings at 56 and 66, the gimbal vibrates. So I have adjusted this one so it doesn't vibrate. I will put a link down in the description where you can go down and download all my custom settings and the new settings for the 1.97 firmware. But let me just show you here what I mean about the strength of the motors. If you take your gimbal, this is the 1.96 firmware edition, and this one has the settings 56, 66 and 80. When I press this, you can see like the gimbal is kind of, I can easily push the motor a little bit. So if we take the gimbal with the 1.97 firmware and the new settings, which is 32, 42 and 58 on the pan motor. Just see here, if I hold it, if I press it, the same force as this one, the motor doesn't move that much, even though the motor strength is lowered on this one. So what does that mean? Should you upgrade your gimbal or should you not? Yes, you can definitely upgrade it to the 1.97 firmware, but you just have to keep in mind, you have to lower the motor strength. And if you have an older gimbal and you update it to the 1.97 firmware, lower the settings, and if it doesn't work, you can always bring it back to the 1.96 firmware edition, which I think is great. And I will put a link in the description where you can go down and download all the firmware editions, so you can bring it back to whatever edition you want. And if you don't know how to do it, you can go and watch my 1.95 video where I show you how to upgrade and downgrade your gimbal. There's one very important thing you have to do when you have upgraded your gimbal, and that is to auto-tune the motors. If you don't do that, your old custom settings will be wiped out and you can't store the new custom settings. So auto-tune your gimbal, then go into the custom settings and adjust the motor strength, and everything is good. It will be stored and it works perfectly. Yes, and as I said, you can go down and download the custom settings for the 1.97 and 1.96 version of the Weebill S. The link is down in the description. That is kind of what we get with the new Zhiyun Weebill S firmware. It's not much, but it's a little bit. If you want to see more Weebill S videos, I have a full series of that. You link some of the videos down here, so you can go back and see that. And of course, if you're new here, remember to subscribe if you want to learn more about filmmaking with motion. And yes, then the last thing, this week we hit 5,000 subscribers on this channel, which is pretty amazing. Super pumped about that. So thanks for that and for being here on this channel. That is it, guys. I don't have any more for you today. And I just want to say one thing, and that is stay safe and stay creative. And if you can, go out and shoot some dope videos. See you next time. Bye.